Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast, the first episode of September, if my calendar math suits me correctly or serves me correctly. I am Illeagle 86. I'm one of your three hosts, and I am joining you from an empty room. We are in the process of moving, as I think I mentioned last week. So if the sound is a little different, if there's a little bit of an echo, it's because there's no furniture here. It's literally just me, a computer, a microphone, a soundboard, and a litter box because we still have a cat. We're going to move with the cat. The cat's going to come with us. I am with Nerdbomber and Techtic as ever. How are you guys doing? You guys aren't moving. Your house is, you're good.
Yeah, we're staying put. We are not in an empty room. We still have piles of clutter all around us in our recording station. So, we're ready to go. We have the non-echo battened down.
Techtic, which by the way, we've probably triggered a bunch of Amazon devices saying the word echo. I just picture Techtic kind of like surrounded by a mountain of partially constructed electronics.
You would
Techtic,
not be incorrect.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately a true fact. I get really into a project and then I move on before the first project is ever complete. And so that is exactly what's surrounded by me.
This surrounded by you. Wow. This may be a naive question, but like when I picture you tinkering, right? I picture soldering being involved. Do you get to that level ever where you're like actually soldering and like doing mad scientist stuff, like Iron Man building his first suit and like Spider-Man, who by the way we'll get to later, building his web shooters? Is that your kind of thing?
I do all my soldering in the garage though because it has better ventilation.
Right. Have good ventilation for soldering, people.
But yeah.
Be safe. Safety first.
Typically, if you want to know how the sauce is made, typically what I'll do is I'll breadboard it up, which is just you kind of push everything into sort of like a pin cushion of circuitry,
right.
If you don't know what that is. And then when I get it working and good, then I'll solder it into a prototyping board permanently so that I can invert it and do all sorts of weird things and it won't fall out of place.
I was really excited because this past week, I managed to uninstall my smart thermostat, which we're going to be taking with us, and reinstall my old thermostat without electrocuting myself, and also such that the air conditioning still worked, because if it didn't work, we'd probably no longer be alive now.
Yeah, you wouldn't electrocute yourself. That's just 12 volts, I think.
It's hot, guys. If our air conditioning doesn't work, I wouldn't be here. So be glad that I accomplished a home improvement project on my own successfully for once. I mean, it's a miracle. And as a result, I'm here with Nerdbomber and Techtic today to talk to you about all things Gamescom. This is going to be a little bit of a different episode. We're going to be dwelling pretty heavily on Gamescom. It was a big event. I think it was like 4 or 5 days over the past weekend. There's a lot to dive into, a lot of new announcements, a lot of trailer footage, a lot of big updates about games we've heard of. So a lot to dive into there.
Feels a lot like E3.
Yeah, I want to say mini E3, but like not that mini, like almost as big an event as E3. So there's a lot to dive into. And we're also going to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home, which the trailer came out for last week. I believe it was like the most viewed, like the first 24 hours, it was like the most viewed video in 24 hours, like ever. Like it was viewed more times than Endgame was. The trailer for Endgame was. It's like, it's such a hyped thing. Like people have been talking about the No Way Home trailer for forever.
Well, especially after that leak.
Yeah, that too. And all the hype around old characters coming back, the multiverse, which we're going to get into all of this later, but it's very hyped, so it serves a decent chunk of the episode. So 2 news topics today, the usual what we're up to, and then the quiz, which will be hosted by me as I emerge triumphant from our previous quiz, which was actually a 3-person quiz effort. But we'll get to that later. Let's get into Gamescom now, and we're going to kind of go, I don't want to say rapid fire. We have a list of games in front of us. I think there's like 10 or thereabouts. Not all the games, of course. We can't cover everything. It's such a big event. And we want to be able to dive into some of these with a decent amount of detail. So perhaps one of the bigger headliners, Halo Infinite, release date December 8th, 2021. That was, I think, announced at Gamescom, so that's big. It's coming this year. Limited edition hardware also announced in conjunction with a really, really cool trailer. So if there's one thing Halo does well, I mean, I'm not a huge Halo guy. Like first of all, I'm off the Xbox train, but like, I think Halo I missed the boat in a manner different than Pokemon, where like Pokemon, I missed the boat and I wanted to. Halo, I missed the boat and I wanted so badly to be on the boat, but I didn't have an Xbox.
It when you were younger.
I've had Halo parties and like I've had LAN parties where you play Halo and goof around. I feel like that doesn't really count. Like I played the campaign of Halo 1 but I haven't played any of the other campaigns, even though on paper I should absolutely love it. But with that said, if there's one thing that Halo does consistently well that I am kind of aware of, it's cinematic trailers. Like, I'll never forget one of my favorite video game trailers ever, which is not this one. This one was really good, but Halo Reach had a cinematic trailer that was actually like live action, and it was absolutely incredible. And they're on their game here. This was a cinematic trailer that basically, it showed, I don't want to spoil anything because it's kind of a long trailer. It's cool to see it happen, but the birth of a Spartan, I guess, is what I'll call it. And I don't mean that in a literal sense. I more mean it as you kind of get a vision into the past of what appears to be one of the main characters in Halo Infinite in a really, really, really cool way. So this was cool. I mean, I think with Halo 2, and why the trailer has to be the way it is what you're getting with Halo. As far as gameplay goes, there's not much new stuff to show. And if there is, they've already shown it. I think at E3 they had some gameplay. This is a hype reel, and this is just saying, hey, this story is still going on, and it's still good, and it can still be captivating, and here's how. And I think they nailed it. But what did you guys think of this one?
I mean, my initial reaction, so this was a multiplayer trailer, and first of all, I think this is the first time we've really seen like a multiplayer story. For the most part, Halo multiplayer has just kind of existed and not really needed a reason to be. Like, if you think about it, like there's been competitive Halo, Halo LAN parties for all time. There's never really been a story behind Halo's multiplayer. And this is something new that they're kind of adding in, where there's going to be seasons now, and you're going to have kind of like a thread line to follow throughout the multiplayer season. And I don't...
Almost like Destiny, because didn't Destiny have the same sort of thing?
Exactly. And I think the reason why they're probably doing that, like, I'm not convinced that it necessarily needs a story in multiplayer. And honestly, the season aspect of multiplayer games, like, really stresses me out because I just don't have time for that. But I think the reason they're doing it is because, Halo multiplayer is going to be free for the first time. So if you have something like a thread line for people to follow, it'll keep them coming back more consistently. If you have a new season, a new story, it might pique people's interest to come back. So I get it. But I'm still a little bit disappointed that we didn't see any of the new campaign gameplay, because I know you kind of missed the boat on that, but I actually did too. I had only really played Halo multiplayer, and then a few years ago, I think when the Master Chief Collection came out and was solidly patched, because that had a rocky start.
It was a great jumping on point after they patched it, it seemed like.
We played couch co-op through all of the games where you could do that. I know Halo 5 didn't have couch co-op, but we kind of started playing through them, and kind of like I did with Gears, because I wasn't originally on the Gears train either. That was something I caught up on later in life when I was in college with Techtic. And, I just want to see now more of the campaign.
Right.
I found this story beat particularly interesting simply because how a Spartan is made is not simply you recruit and join up and so it is. They basically raise you starting from the age of 5 or 6 years old and augment your skeleton and your muscles and train you to be this brutal survivor, unstoppable force. And so it's kind of interesting to see someone sort of older become a Spartan. And the reason why that's interesting is the reason why it's ideal to take a 5 or 6 year old, because they take to all these treatments. So there could be an incredible amount of heart behind this character, because potentially going through all of those procedures is a lot harder on an already fully developed person. And so
totally.
I'm intrigued to see how that kind of plays with the Spartan lore.
It's also kind of neat to get a character outside of Master Chief and Cortana. And I know they tried to do this a little bit with Halo 3 ODST, and they had that whole, it was a live action miniseries. I think it was a web series or something, Forward Unto Dawn, where it was a live action look at the Spartans and getting away from Master Chief and all that. And I find that really cool, because Halo is, and we talked about this last week with, the Star Wars universe and everything. I feel like there's a lot more to Halo and the world of Halo than what we typically get. We follow Master Chief, but there's so much more going on in this world.
It can be, the world is there. The world has been built such that more characters can inhabit it than functionally do for players, right? And with this whole, when I hear free-to-play multiplayer and I hear seasons, I think Fortnite. Because I think Fortnite was they were one of the ones who were like, we're going to do the seasons thing, and they do it in a different way than Destiny. I want more of like a Destiny thing, where Destiny, you get a lot of the flavor from the single player campaign, but a lot of the multiplayer campaign has story elements cooked into that. And I think you want to do that. That's a good way to give Halo fans more than the same old thing. Like I said before, Halo multiplayer especially is it's the same thing every time. And it's great. It's really tight and dialed in. It's perfect. But you need to give people something else. You need to give them more, especially in this, the state of the industry right now. You need to draw them in. And this is a great way to do that. So I thought that it's cool to see that they're kind of branching that whole story aspect into multiplayer. I hope more games kind of do that as well, which is a great idea. A lot more development work for them, which is why it hasn't happened, but it may be worth the effort, I think. I want to jump around, I guess, stick to tried and true franchise and talk about Call of Duty Vanguard for a second, because Call of Duty is one of those, it's, I think, in a similar camp where in a lot of ways they do the same thing every time, right? And they've added a lot of bells and whistles to it, since like Call of Duty 2, which is kind of where I jumped in. But I think Vanguard, the extended look at the campaign we got, which was single player, and it was really just walking you through a mission, it was old school Call of Duty to me, and I mean that in the best possible way. It was Call of Duty 2 with really, really sharp graphics, some more nuance to the gameplay, climbing through things, and, making it feel so much more like you're there than you could ever feel when on the Xbox 360. And I was really into this, to the point that I was surprised. Call of Duty, to me, I've written it off largely as a franchise lately, whether or not I should have. But this was sharp footage, and I was kind of taken in by it to the point that, I would buy back in. I think they need to offer people a jumping back in point, people like me, and this looks poised to do that in such a way that, like, you're not going to have all the modern advanced warfare, I don't want to call it nonsense, but like there is kind of a story thread that winds through all of those as far as I understand it. No, give me a clean slate. I want to get in on Vanguard. I want to get back to World War II. I want to get back to the thing that made you great in the first place. So I was really into this.
I couldn't agree more. World War II was exactly where I jumped in as well, specifically on the PSP, actually. And
oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. The story coupled with the, none of this out of this world technology, just classic shooting game, solving a little bit of history. And it's just, that was their bread and butter. And I loved seeing this. I couldn't have been more excited about seeing that again.
I weirdly, and I don't know if it was just the pacing of it, kind of slowing it down, because, going through the story of the main character here was Polina, and she was supposed to be a sniper. So obviously, it's like slower paced gameplay. And I don't know if it was just because, it kind of slowed down the presentations, and I was coming off of like, one after another of kind of quick cinematic trailers, but something about it was very slow. And I don't know exactly what it was. And it might just be, and honestly, I definitely recommend if you want to jump back in the Call of Duty train. And I know Activision is kind of like a faux pas right now because of all the stuff going on there. But Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War also had a really good campaign. And that felt a little bit more, it still had like that tight old school gameplay. It didn't have any of the crazy like advanced warfare, wall jumping and jetpack nonsense, because obviously this was like the Cold War, but the story and everything felt super like just fast paced and tight, and something about this just seemed a little bit slower. And I don't know, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but for me, like the pacing, something was off.
Black Ops was a great campaign. I think Black Ops was the last one I played all the way through. Whichever one I played Black Ops. I don't think I played Modern Warfare 3. That might have been where I jumped off. I played Modern Warfare 2. I played Black Ops. I played pretty much all of them up to that point. And they were all great. And I'm sure the campaigns, by and large, are still great, but there is a point where, whether it's a perception or a reality, it seems like it jumped the shark and got a little out of hand. And like, I'm sure the multiplayer still has like nukes and like drones, but like in World War II, in the World War II era, I want them to go back to some extent to just like, okay, you have a rifle that shoots, 5 rounds every 10 seconds, or if that. Make that work. And it's not like you have the fanciest, coolest gun that has all these attachments on it. No, it's you have an iron sight. Make that work. Like, I think there's something really attractive about taking that simple model and making it look really, really darn good with this next gen hardware. And and rolling with that. And yeah, amidst other flashy trailers, it was a little bit more subdued. I will totally agree on that. But it was in a way that I think resonated with me personally, which again surprised me. This one is November 5th, 2021. This is right around the corner. So Call of Duty fans, rejoice if this was something you were into. Maybe fans of the franchise themselves, given what they've had for the past few years, maybe they hate this. I don't actually know, but I responded positively to it. So I wanted to mention that. Again, also in the interest of like, that was a big deal and from a known franchise. I'm going to kind of keep going in that order, so to speak, looking at big franchises that we already know about or had already previously heard about. Something that's been dormant for a while. Now, Saints Row is interesting because I only ever played the original demo of Saints Row on Xbox 360.
Oh, was this like a demo disc deal?
It was not a demo disc. I got it off Xbox Live, but it was just delightful. It was absolutely delightful. One like cornerstone memory for me of like gaming when I was a kid, because this was like, I was like in high school probably at this point, maybe not even that. And we downloaded the demo, and it was definitely one of those games where like if our mom knew we were playing, she'd be like, don't play that. Because it's like, it's not even, it like Saints Row, the first Saints Row was kind of like Grand Theft Auto, but it was very like, I remember my older brother, I was watching him play, and he was like doing some kind of mission that came with the demo, and he was reading the text on the screen, and he was like, go get the Haas from the bar. And it was spelled H-O-S. It was hose, guys. It was supposed to say hose. But he said Haas because, I don't know, we weren't familiar with the term or something. I'll never forget that. And it had this like, it had this energy of like, I don't even know. It was different than Grand Theft Auto, and it was so much fun. It was a little bit cartoony. And now, I lost the thread of Saints Row. I know there was Saints Row 2. There was many other Saints Row renditions after that. But it started lying dormant after that. I think 2013 was when it dropped off the map. Now it's coming back with a new release date, February 25th, 2022, with something that looks much more cartoony. And I don't know. I wasn't into this one. It was a cool trailer. They're clearly laying down a lot of groundwork to come back hard. But it was very, and I see you wrote this in our show notes here, Nerdbomber. I don't want to steal this from you, but it's true. It was Fortnite-y. Yeah. It definitely gave me Fortnite-y vibes, and I don't mean that in a good way. I don't think you did either. I doubt that's what Saints Row fans want, but I guess I don't also really know what Saints Row fans want because I haven't really played the franchise beyond the demo disc, so I'm not sure I'm qualified, but it was just very like, it was out of control a little bit. They were like riding on rooftops at one point. There was the giant explosion. It was just, there's muscly guys. There's a lot going on. I don't know. What your read on this was. This was just too much for me.
Where I'm at is, the trailer was pretty exciting. There was, like you said, it was a little Fortnite-y for sure in the animation style, especially that helmet.
Yeah, very over the top.
It's tough for me to really kind of say yay or nay without seeing any kind of gameplay footage. That's the thing that's gonna do it for me. And until I see that, I can't really make a call either way.
Yeah.
It also gave me a little bit of like, and Techtic, you've played this game. It reminded me a little bit of Watch Dogs Legion, of like
trying to be snarky and smarmy and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
and like we're gonna be ridiculous, but also exactly, like kind of smart alecky and like I don't know, like every character is better than you, but also like, you can play as an old lady.
I finished that game to the end.
Really? Must have been good then. That's not something you do.
See,
that's nuts.
For me, like I don't know. I have like mixed emotions on this one. So I've never actually played a Saints Row game. I own them. I just never got around to playing them. And I thought this looked fun. Like I was also getting like Sunset Overdrive type vibes. And that game was a lot of fun. Just cartoony, out of this world kind of craziness. This trailer had laser battles, crazy car chases. They said there was like an open sandbox to explore. And, at the end of the day, like this is a series reboot. So as a newcomer, it seemed fun and exciting. I'm sure, like you said, people who have been entrenched in this franchise, seeing it more like kind of grittier and more, I don't want to call it streetwise, but like maybe they're not responding well. And I know I've seen some of that reaction on Twitter and Reddit. Hardcore fans of the franchise are just a little bit like, what is this? But, it might be fun.
Yeah. So Saints Row, I believe, it's named after, there's a gang called the Saints, and you're a gang, and like you're going around doing gang stuff.
Yeah.
Picking up Haas from bars. That's what you're doing.
And like, this is not that. They have kids, techie little kids who are trying to have some like dark illicit startup tech oriented. And that's kind of weird to me.
They've moved, and maybe again, like I'm hedging a little bit, 'cause, like maybe Saints Row did become this in subsequent games, but the first game definitely wasn't like this. So what I don't want to see, even as someone who's removed from the franchise and not even really a fan, like I don't want to see a franchise come back and be like, oh, we're going to be something totally different and just stick the name Saints Row on it and the fans will come back. Like that doesn't do anybody any good.
I know you're particularly worried about that with Dead Space on the horizon.
Yeah, for sure. And one also like a name that has already been bastardized, which why don't we transition away from this and over to Metroid Dread, which, I this is a different one. This is a little different because actually Metroid Dread is probably closer to the roots of Metroid than Metroid Prime was. But
that's why I love this game and why I keep getting upset every time you crap all over it. This is what I fell in love with when it came to the Metroid games.
I have to say, this hit me right this time.
Attaboy.
This hit me in such a way. This hit me in a like I will buy this way. I've never finished a Metroid side scroller because, by the way, they're hard. The old Metroid games are like
they're
pretty
so hard.
Best one was Metroid Fusion. Just throwing it out there, folks.
I believe I started Super Metroid. I never finished it because I just like got stuck. Like it's very similar. Like Metroid Prime is based on those side scroller games in that it's a Metroidvania. You go to certain places, you get new upgrades, you have to go back to other places. There's a lot of like retracing your steps.
Yeah, you have to really think about it.
In 2D mode, for some reason, that is so much harder. And I don't know, my brain can't wrap around it the same way. If I don't have 3D environments to look at, I can't piece together where I need to go as easily. It may be like a map design thing. I have no idea. But I think Metroid Dread, if only because of graphical capability and things that are going on in the background of the 2D, like I think they're going to beat that. And I think also this gameplay looks really sharp. Like I have to admit, I was like, oh, and it looks like there's a lot of cinematics kind of spliced in that give me something a little bit closer to Metroid Prime that I want. So I think this might be a winner. Like, will I spend $60 on this? I'm going to wait, probably. But will I eventually play it and maybe like it? Yeah, I think so. And in this, by the way, not long to wait, October 8th, 2021. So this is like coming up really soon. I think this was great footage. I think it sold me. It definitely sold me. So I don't know if that's what they wanted to do. I'm not their target audience maybe, but I'm there.
It didn't really do much for me. And I feel like I'm going to draw the ire of a lot of our listeners. I see you, Steven. I know you're sad.
Usually I do that, but yeah, go ahead.
But I've never played a Metroid game, and I think something closer to Metroid Prime, like you said, like 2D side-scrollers, I used to play them all the time. And lately, like, I just don't have the patience for them.
They've never been my thing.
They're not, like, I get so stressed because they're just hard. Sometimes I just want to sit down and play a game, and I don't know if this is going to be my into the Metroid series, unfortunately.
On handheld, they're great. Like I know Switch is technically a handheld, but like give me a break. On like Game Boy.
I tried to get the listeners to convince me to buy a Switch Lite for this exact purpose, but they said that I should be responsible with my money.
One of the hardest games I've ever played and have never beat is a side scroller called Donkey Kong Country.
What?
And yeah, have you ever beat Donkey Kong Country? The game's impossible. I'm gonna give you a medal if you have. The game's insanely hard.
Dude, side scrollers in general, like, go back to when we were kids and this was all we played. Like, side scrollers were basically all we had. And the patience that we had, insane.
Just ground it out. So
they're so punishing.
I want to point at two things that was specifically introduced in this. We got introduced to the real big bad, not the robot thing, the real big bad. That's exciting for a number of reasons. One, it was a perfect adversary against Metroid or Samus.
Yeah, that's Samus. Did you call her Metroid?
Yeah, that's why I corrected it. And two, I'll bet you that this thing is going to be a new fighter has appeared in Smash because the combat's going to be similar for sure.
And that's like what Nintendo does.
And that's what they do.
Yeah, no doubt.
3, the whole gameplay of the Metroid games is basically you're introduced to the bad guy early on, And as you play the game, you get all the upgrades and
You're chasing
everything,
them, basically.
through your suit to where all of a sudden you're at the level where you can now take them on. And so that alluded to this, that some sort of catalyst is going to happen where you get a power up that saves you, and then you can go on and take on the big bad later on. So this game is staying true to its roots. I'm pulled in. I'm for it. I just got to buy a Switch Lite when it seems appropriate.
Right. And if there's one thing we can get behind on this podcast, it's fiscal irresponsibility. So whatever you have to do, keep us updated. So let's move on now. I think we've hit the really high profile stuff. Let's move into some, I don't want to call them indies because they're not, but kind of darker horses. And we can kind of go around. I want to mention a game that's actually already out that caught my eye. And I did not know was out, that I'll probably buy this on the Switch. Hypercharged Unboxed. This is Small Soldiers, the game, which when I saw this trailer, I was like, we may have talked about this on the podcast before and I just forgot about it. But it looks amazing. It looks like you're small soldiers. It's a shooter. It appears to be
a shooter with friends.
Yeah, PvE. And you can customize basically an action figure that you play as, and you shoot other toys. It's I think it takes there's something to be said for taking the shooter gameplay style, which is undeniably fun, and taking the actually violent aspect out of it. I think it's just very pleasing because you feel better about playing it. And that
right,
maybe
so
a conscious or a subconscious thing. But yeah,
we're going to make a blood pact right here, right now. If you buy it, I'll buy it.
Non-violent, and you said blood pact.
Blood pact. If you buy it, I'll buy it.
Now, doesn't a blood pact, don't we have to cut our hands open and shake hands?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'll do a virtual pact.
That's nasty, man. Pinky swear. Next time I see you guys in person, which may be a while, but pinky swear. I love a good pinky swear.
Well, by then, you'll have either bought it or not, so if you buy it, we'll buy it.
The critical question that I don't know the answer to is, what is the price? Because I don't want to spend $60 on it. Again, I doubt it is. Let me Google it real quick.
This is an indie game, and one of the things that actually impressed me, so after I saw this, I was initially this looks like Toy Story. There's a bunch of different environments, and it just looks super cool. But then I started digging into it. And did you know this game was actually made by 5 individuals? I'm not talking about 5 individual teams, literally just 5 people put this game together. And I don't know, we were talking about this last week. I just think that's super dope. This game has obviously gotten on the Gamescom platform, it's gotten a decent amount of attention. Built by 5 people. How neat.
This game costs $20.
Oh, definitely. This is a purchase.
The price is right. Yeah, the price is right on this one. On the Switch. I don't know on Steam.
And it's filled with nostalgia, and it just hits all the right buttons, folks.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about that one for sure. It just seems wholesome in a way, even though it's still your shooting stuff. It just seems wholesome. Okay, well, it sounds like we're all in agreement on that one. Let's talk about Giants Uprising, because this was another interesting one.
Yes.
So this takes the cake for me. Most visually stunning. It was clear that the front office folks at this development company, which I don't know what it is off the top of my head, came to the devs and were like, okay, we want a trailer that displays your penchant for making really realistic, destructible environments. Because that was there were so many just a bunch of bricks falling everywhere. Really beautifully done. This was probably the most graphically impressive trailer that I saw personally. And that includes Call of Duty Vanguard, which I thought was also very impressive. As far as what it is, you're a giant and regular sized people are messing with you. That seems that's, as far as I can tell, that's the gist. Which,
Here's the story. Cool. Humans are dicks.
That's what I love about this concept, though. This is one of the things that I walked away with. So basically from the trailer, you're a giant and a bunch of humans come at you and they try to capture you. And then you obviously you escape and you come at them. And from all of the different fairy tales and all the fantastical stories and lore, usually you think of the giant as the bad guy, and you're always put in the headspace of a human facing down a giant, and you're the hero trying to take down this big thing. And usually, in all of these stories, giants are just living their life. They're not really doing anything. You're the human coming in, invading their territory.
I'm just glad they finally made Shrek the video game.
Funny.
Do you see how big his hands are? Because he's a giant. Everything's big. He's a giant. His hands are massive. Out of proportion with the rest of his body. That's cool. You're gonna get to play as a character with giant hands and be giant. It's a really simple concept.
You get to be the bad guy. Like, I just think that's so cool. You're flipping the script.
But is he not also just misunderstood?
Exactly.
Yeah,
like, that's what I love.
Yeah.
I love all these games where you kind of get in the mindset of the villain. Like, I feel like we don't really get enough of those games. I'm always talking about how I love those games. And it's just, there's something cool about kind of like bucking that archetype and seeing, the bad guy maybe is not that bad. And I mean, obviously, some bad guys are just bad. Like, we don't want to get into the nitty gritty, like absolving all bad people in history of their crimes. But like in fantastical stories, giants aren't necessarily the bad guys.
So like Wicked, it's like the Wicked perspective where they were just misunderstood.
Love it.
Yeah, that was a good one. We're running long already, but there's more we have to hit. So let's rapid fire some of these. Severed Steel. This is very arcade. This is like your bullet time, you're running around, you're shooting stuff. Very cool, very slick.
Reminded
very
me of
much
like
my thing.
Ghost Runner and Super Hot. I've also seen a lot of comparisons to Mirror's Edge, and it looked cool.
Yeah, very
Have you
much
played
my
Ghost
thing.
Runner?
Never played Ghost Runner. Did play Super Hot VR, and I was like, this is awesome. And it looks like kind of visually minimalist like that, but there's also a lot going on. There's a lot of shooting, a lot of things you have to dodge, and you're kind of like parkouring. It looks really slick and very easy to play. So I was into that. That comes out September 17th, 2021 on PC, and before the end of 2021 on consoles. Not sure when beyond that. The big one we haven't mentioned yet, Marvel's Midnight Suns. Of course, this is Marvel IP, so that's a big deal in and of itself. But this is more of a tactical RPG. This is from the XCOM folks. So from what I know of XCOM, not my thing at all. But I don't know.
Yeah,
cool.
it's top-down strategy. Like, it's troop management. You have a character, but you also then are like raising other characters up in your ranks, and you're sending them off on missions. And it's very turn-based from there. You move like 3 spots over, and then you attack an enemy. And this isn't really my cup of tea either. Like, I've played XCOM a little bit. I played Gears Tactics a little bit. Like, they're fine. I don't seek them out though. Like, I don't know. I like to turn my brain off sometimes.
I know it's not my thing.
But like, I think it's cool that Marvel is branching out, and even just in terms of game type, like the characters that they're picking here, it's not your well-known Avengers and X-Men. And yes, they're in here too.
Was that Ghost Rider or was it somebody else?
Ghost Rider was in here.
Yeah.
And
okay,
it's
I wanted to make sure.
It's cool to me that they're getting, not necessarily the mainstream characters and properties and putting them on stage. Like, they have such a big stable of characters and properties and things to draw from. And I just love the fact that they're getting experimental here.
And even besides the gameplay, which again, also not my cup of tea, the trailer just looked badass. It was a fantastic trailer. They fooled me. They fooled me with XCOM with that fantastic trailer too. And I was like, I don't like the style of gameplay.
Right. You definitely wouldn't know from watching the trailer that like you're going to be moving people into places, and like, it's very tactical, which it doesn't sound like it's any of our things, which is why we're kind of putting it here in the back half of this discussion, I guess. Now, okay, Synced Off Planet. I think this is one that we've talked about before. It was very familiar to me. Watching this, it was a 1 minute long story trailer that confused me a little bit, in the sense that it seems like you are technologically upgraded humans in a post-apocalyptic world where the robots that you built kind of took over, but now they're helping you against what? I don't know.
Well, I think they like have implanted chips, and somehow it like managed to take over some people and like do something with their particles.
Brains.
And like rearrange their matter or something. So you're just trying to like keep it together for humanity until you can get off the planet. This, like, it's a kind of generic sci-fi story. What I liked about it though was like it felt very AA. And hey, I love stumping for AA. Bring AA back. I love me some AA.
It's a little early to tell what exactly this is going to be, and the story does seem a little bit generic, but there's definitely potential, I think, is maybe where we can leave this one. I don't think we know enough yet. There's no hard release date on it. It was just kind of, hey, this is still going on. I think it's kind of what the trailer was supposed to tell us. So we'll see more. Yeah, go ahead.
I have engineer brain to my own detriment. And even if the plot and everything's good, if the technology doesn't at least seem to track, like I enjoy Star Trek because the technology kind of tracks. Throughout its whole history, it kind of tracks where you're like, okay, that's believable. I could not grasp what was going on with matter in this one. And until I can kind of fathom what the heck they were talking about, this one's going to be a tough sell for me.
I don't know, man. That's a tall order for them based on what we see in the trailer, just kind of stuff being synthesized. I mean, I think the character even says at one point, like, once they started manipulating matter, it was all over, something like that.
Oh, yeah. I don't say the
how that
technology
happens,
has to be possible. I'm just saying it has to make sense
and
of
be
some
consistent.
extent.
And yeah, there needs to be some kind of jargony explanation for it. We'll see what they give us in that regard. I don't even know how to pronounce this one.
DokeV.
I don't.
I will take this.
I don't get it
because I don't think anyone understands this.
I don't. You're skateboarding. You're fighting monsters. Talk away. I don't.
The trailer is super entertaining, and it didn't really tell you what you were really doing. Like, you have a bunch of gadgets, you fight a bunch of monsters. So I went to the little description, and basically the developer Perlibis is saying it's an upcoming creature collecting open world action adventure.
Sound familiar? Because it should.
But like, this isn't Pokemon.
No, this one you're a 10-year-old.
Right.
So
it's not Pokemon, I know. It's clearly different than that, but like from that synopsis, it's Pokemon.
Yeah, like it kind of looks like, in terms of the synopsis, sure, but it's
when you watch the trailer.
There's so much going on. Like, you're skateboarding.
It's like a long trailer too. It's like 5 minutes, if I remember correctly, and you're just the whole time you're just like, what? Slow down. Tell me what this is. It looked
really compelling though. Like, all of the gadgets, and like it seemed like there was a lot of platforming, and even the graphics, like, they were very cartoony, but a lot of the landscapes in the background actually looked pretty photorealistic. Maybe not entirely, but like, I don't know. And the battles seemed fun. I don't know what the objects were of the game, but like, it didn't tell me anything, but yet told me just enough to pique my interest. And now I kind of want it.
So from a plot standpoint, yes, I agree. Pokemon vibes all the way. From a gameplay standpoint, I got Sonic vibes. And before you go say, what now? Hear me out. The movement was very fluid and fast. When you would attack the monsters you were attacking were never the monsters that were helping you. So similar to Sonic, when you would blow up one of Eggman's robots and the little like creatures come out, that's what I think is going to happen here. I think you bust open these robotic monster things, and then like happy monsters come out, and those are your pals. And so I'm going to say Sonic meets Pokemon meets Sunset Overdrive. And that is this game.
I'm very story driven, so when you find out what this is, let me know. That's like, I don't disagree with anything you said. It's just like, as far as the appeal for me goes, if I'm going to buy a game and play it, I need to know what it is, and I don't know what this is yet. It is fairly clear what Outlast Trials is, which is Outlast, but more. Sure. I don't know. I felt very, very middling on this one, in the sense that, like, it looks like more of what they did.
Well, a little different. Like, they returned to the insane asylum theme, because like that was where the first game started, and then they backed away from the second game. But now it's more like
journalist,
right? Now it looks like you're a patient in some kind of experiment, and they added like Saw vibes and maybe some like Portal vibes, like the overseer type thing. You know what I mean? And there's co-op now, so like. My initial reaction is obviously like, hell no.
You're never going to play this.
But maybe with like more player co-op. I don't know.
I can't manage 2 controllers at once.
Right, exactly. It's not worth it, man. That comes out sometime in 2022 as far as we can tell. To finish things out, Techtic, there was one that you specifically wanted to talk about, which I watched the trailer for, and I definitely understood Cult of the Lamb. Wow, what a premise. You're a sacrificial lamb who, I guess, comes back to life or isn't actually sacrificed and builds a cult following amongst a lot of woodland creatures. Is that a fair, like, it's,
yeah, this looks fun because it looks cute, and it's
Nerdbomber called it demonic Animal Crossing.
It's deeply,
which I think is
right. It's deeply troubling how cute it is. And one of the premises, you start your own cult following, but you also have to sacrifice people to keep yourself going. And so there's a bunch of that. It's cute, but it's also disturbing. And you tend to your farm and land. And what is this game? It's everything.
You have to know who to sacrifice, who to have worship you, and who do you possess? Because it looks like you can possess some animals. There's a lot going on. Part dungeon crawler, part Animal Crossing, I guess, is like what it looks like, which is very interesting as an idea.
It's
Again,
unique.
I don't know if it's my thing, but
where else is there other games like this?
I think the answer is nowhere. Nerdbomber, your take?
I think so. Initially, I kind of wrote it off, and then Techtic was like, "I want to talk about this. This looks really great." And I watched it again, and I was like, I started seeing all of the Animal Crossing-esque things, and I was like, "This is really dark," but also I'm kind of compelled to play this because it just seems insanely silly and crazy, and like you guys said, there's nothing else like this.
Yeah, you're not going to find anything like it anywhere, which is a good place for us to cap the Gamescom discussion. I mean, there's a lot we didn't get to. There's a lot of unique stuff, a lot of indie stuff, a lot of AAA stuff, even some AA stuff, as we talked about with Synced Off Planet. So feel free to take a look at all the games that were announced or teased or other such things, and hit us up on Twitter. Let us know what we missed, what you want to talk about, more that we already did talk about, whether our opinions are wrong. You know the drill. At OW86, at OW Techtic, at OW Nerdbomber, in our main show account, at Online Warriors 1 is where you can hit us up. And of course, we're going to go to a break now and come back to talk about Spider-Man. But before we do, I would be remiss if we did not shout out our Patreon producer, Mr. Steven Keller. Steven, take a bow. You are a valiant... Oh, there it is. We just clapped. If we can turn it on like that, it sounds like 30 people clapping, and we start and stop instantly. So you're welcome. It's a talent of ours, and we'll continue to use it for you, my friend. Steven supports us as a knight at our round table. He supports us on Patreon at the highest of our 3 tiers of support, and as a result, he gets this producer shout out. He gets input into our weekly game segment, and he, of course, gets access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, in addition to the occasional guest spot, which he just did with us last week. So if you want to be a knight, well, you do want to be a knight. You want to be like Steven. You can also be a squire, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog. And there's also the page level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. And for more of the details on all of those things, you can head over to patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast. Thanks again to Steven. We're going to take a short break now, and we'll come back to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home.
Today's episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. Do you feel like you're stuck in a dinner rut? With HelloFresh, you can get pre-measured ingredients with mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Skip all those trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. You can now enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in 30 minutes or less. With over 25 recipes to choose from each week, there's something for everyone to enjoy. All recipes are designed and tested by professional chefs and nutritional experts to ensure deliciousness and simplicity. Me personally, I love their taco dishes. They're usually a chicken fajita meal, and they are fantastic. Go to the link in our show notes to get $80 off, including free shipping on HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit.
Online Warrior podcast listeners, I want to take a few seconds of your time just to promote Xbox Tavern's podcast. It's an Xbox-centric podcast with news, reviews, as well as the 5 of us talking about all things Xbox. We're from the UK, would love to get in your ears. Search Xbox Tavern on your best podcast app. And you can also head over to xboxtavern.com, where we've got our latest reviews, as well as some opinion pieces. Go check it out. Now, back to the show.
Okay, Spider-Man No Way Home, the moment we've all been waiting for. The trailer is here. We got a lot of Doctor Strange. We got a lot of Spider-Man. We got a little bit of Doc Ock at the end. Spoiler alert, Alfred Molina is back. No sign of Tobey. Makes me upset. No sign of Andrew Garfield, but a lot to dissect. So I think all of us are going to see this. It's not a question of, are you going to go see this? Do you think this looks good? I think it looks phenomenal. There's a lot to unpack in terms of multiverse stuff. There's a lot to unpack in terms of, is that actually Doctor Strange, which I think we're going to get into a little bit. I've seen a lot of there's a lot of fan stuff swirling around, a lot of fan theories. Some people think that you can see Daredevil in the trailer at one point. Some people think you can hear James Franco in the voiceover at one point, and people just think it's Doctor Strange. I don't know. I mean, this is just super exciting. You know, I don't have much in terms of critique, like I kind of did for the Eternals trailer. You know, I think this is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to see what they do. I think it's going to be a huge jumping off point for the next phase of the MCU in terms of multiverse stuff. Does what Doctor Strange does with this spell, does it break more than just Spider-Man's world? Probably it does, right? And if they can't fix it in this movie, they're going to have to spend multiple movies fixing it. Spoiler alert, I think that's what's going to happen. But, who is Doctor Strange? Of course, the question you hear all the time these days is it Mephisto? Because everything apparently can be Mephisto. I don't know much about Mephisto, but apparently everyone can be Mephisto. I think he could be a Skrull. Throwing that one out there. Skrulls be everywhere, But Techtic, I'm interested in your theories. You're a comic book expert. So anything you want to level.
So this is sort of a popular theory that's out there, and that is that Doctor Strange is sort of Nicholas Scratch. Nicholas Scratch is Agatha Harkness's son, and we've already been introduced to her, so it's not really a stretch to say that her and her son have this sort of plot plan within this universe. And in the comic books, Nicholas Scratch has possessed Franklin Richards before, so it's not something that hasn't been done before. And so that would kind of jive with him possessing Doctor Strange and sort of introducing the multiverse of madness.
And he would have the power to cast that sort of spell. I mean, we've seen like Agatha Harkness obviously has a lot of power herself. So would that be like passed down to her son?
Well, that's sort of the beauty of, and why I think it's not him impersonating Doctor Strange, but rather possessing Doctor Strange. Because now he's kind of tapped into his abilities.
Gotcha.
And he knows the spells and has the background and wherewithal to conduct them. And so that's my theory that I think is a very real possibility. And frankly, it makes sense.
So where would Agatha Harkness be, though? Like, if her son is off doing this, do we even know if she has a son in, like, the MCU based on what we saw in, WandaVision? Like, where would Agatha Harkness come into play in this? Do you know? Have any theories?
Well, both her and her son are fairly old as far as the timeline goes, considering she came from the Salem witch trials. So yes, she has a son. Yes, it would place them appropriately into the MCU. The question that I still have then that's still out there is this happening concurrently with WandaVision? So if she's not there, is she in the village dealing with Wanda and keeping that under wraps? And at what point do those two parallel paths sort of converge into each other? That I do not know yet.
I think this is actually Doctor Strange. Like, I think that the arrogance of Wong leaving, saying, don't cast this spell, and he says, I won't, and then he winks at Peter, that's in character. That's fully in character. He's, when he was in his origin story, in the movie, he's this arrogant guy. Even after he learns about the cosmic powers that hold the universe together, whatever, he's still this kind of cocky, arrogant guy. That's kind of the way he does things. So to me, none of this looked fishy. Greater comic book lore set aside, I think it might actually be him. We don't see them in the trailer, obviously, but are we going to see Tobey and Andrew in this movie? We have to. I'm almost certain that we will.
I don't know that we'd see Andrew Garfield. I have a sneaking suspicion that we will see Tobey simply because Dr. Octavius's glorious return.
Right, but I mean, so in this trailer, a few of the other details, so obviously, like, there's a scene of a flash of lightning hitting a police car, and I think that's supposed to hint at the return of Electro, which was Jamie Foxx, who I think was already confirmed to be in this movie, and wasn't
Could it not also be Shocker?
I guess.
I
but
totally
I thought
believe
Jamie Foxx
Electro.
was already linked, but I don't know. I could be making this up. It could have come to me in like a fever dream, but that would lead me, because that was like Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, correct?
That was news that he was linked to reprise the role, but until I've seen it in like trailer footage, there was a lot of, hey, this is going to happen. And the only thing that's really confirmed for me is Dr. Octavius. And
well, there was a pumpkin bomb too. Look at me, actually looking.
Right.
I'm usually not the detail-oriented person when it comes to trailers,
right.
but I was thinking about this.
And we
These
could
could
have
be
we could
cameo
have
situations.
both Electro and Green Goblin in there, but I'm saying for it to be the same actor, i.e. that
You'd have to
character
see him.
from that universe, right? It could be the Green Goblin from Tom Holland's universe.
That's fair.
So that's
I
why
think it could be look at Star Wars, like what they did with Star Wars, where Ewan McGregor kept saying, "Oh, they brought me back to do yada yada." He kept getting connected to the sequel movies. They would bring him back to do some voiceover that you barely hear. These people could be connected. Tobey Maguire might be on screen for 1 second, or he might not even be on screen at all. You might hear him talking. Like it just, the rumors about who's in what, you can't put much stock in. I'm certain I believe that, but I don't know. I think we see both of them. I think that they're building up to that.
And that's why, like I said, seeing the same actor as Dr. Octavius, the only one that I can have any sort of a semblance of confidence in is Tobey Maguire. Until we see one of the other actors from one of the other movies, that's it.
When he says, "Hello, Peter," is he talking to Tom Holland or is he talking to Tobey Maguire? Because you don't know. They make it seem like it's Tom Holland, but it would be weird.
I feel like that's going to be a head fake. I feel like that's got to be Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker, because I mean,
he's not going to know Tom Holland is Peter Parker unless he has. But he might. He's a scientist too. He might also have some greater knowledge of the multiverse and know that this is the other Peter. It's
Peter. He's speaking to Tobes 100%.
We're going to talk about Tobes a little later.
Like, it's nice to see you again, and he wouldn't be seeing Tom Holland again. He'd be seeing him for the first time.
Remember what the original intent of the spell was. It was for everyone to forget who he is. So there's no reason that he would just all of a sudden be the only one who remembers. Everyone would have to forget that Tom Holland is Spider-Man. And thus, the only thing that makes sense is that Dr. Octavius recognizes Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man.
Which, by the way, I don't love that premise in the sense of like when he's like, "Oh, can't like Aunt May and like my best friend and Mary Jane, like I want them to keep knowing that I'm Spider-Man." It's like, just have him do the spell and then tell him after.
Yeah, like just tell them after the fact. Like it doesn't make a difference.
If you want him to know, then just retell them. It's like not a big deal. That was I don't know. Maybe they'll address that in the actual movie, but that was like one nitpick that I had. Do we have a release date for this yet? I think we do. December 17th, 2021 is what I have here. Christmas time movie. So be on the lookout for that. Let us know what your theories are. I already mentioned our Twitter handles in the front half of the episode. This could be a big one, folks. We're going to talk about Spider-Man more later for the quiz, but before we do that, real quick, we need to get into what we've been up to. And I'm going to start because I have two recommendations, one movie and one television show. The movie is an oldie. I believe it's 2013 that came out. It's a romantic comedy called What If, starring Daniel Radcliffe.
Harry Potter.
Yeah. And Adam Driver as the funny best friend. And then a bunch of other people that I don't really know. But this was a movie that I turned on a whim on a Thursday night with a glass of wine by myself. And I had the best time. I'm a sucker for romantic comedies. Don't get me wrong. It's an easy genre for me. If you go in with the right mindset, you're going to have a good time. This was very sharply written. Got good reviews and for good reason. It slipped under my radar for whatever reason at the time. But this is free on Amazon Prime. Can't recommend it enough. Yeah, no further details. It's great. I won't spoil anything, although it's pretty formulaic. Just you should go watch it. On a totally different note, I've definitely recommended trashy reality television on this podcast before, and why stop now? But this is next level stuff, guys. I've talked about Love is Blind on the podcast. I'm sure I've talked about other stuff. This show is literally called, it's on HBO Max. It's called FBoy Island.
Oh, no, you didn't.
FBoy, you know, can I say the word that it stands for?
Go for it.
Fuckboy. Fuck. But it's so annoying. They don't call it Fuckboy Island. And they call, like, okay, so here's the premise. There's 3 women on an island. They're, of course, all hot. There are 24 men who go on the island with them. 12 of them are quote-unquote nice guys, and 12 of them are self-proclaimed quote-unquote F-boys. And they call themselves F-boys, and everyone calls, when they say fuckboy, they say F-boy, which is super annoying because they're on HBO. And
how do you know the nice guys aren't F-boys?
Because the fuckboys are self-proclaimed fuckboys.
So are the nice guys self-proclaimed nice guys?
Yeah, they're like, I'm nice.
I don't think I've ever met a nice guy that has to claim that they're a nice guy.
Well, listen,
it sounds like the entire island is filled with fuckboys.
There is some kind of monetary component to this where, like, if you make it to the end, you get like $100,000 or something. I don't even know what the goal is.
Yeah, what is making it to the end? Only sleep with like 6 of them? Well,
there's 3 women, and they eliminate 3 men each week. And they're basically trying to eliminate the fuckboys, but also like not really, because some of the fuckboys are hot and they like hot guys. It is next level trashy television. Like, I've recommended trashy television on this podcast before, but this is maybe a bridge too far. A lot of you may lose respect for me if you watch this, but hey, there was probably a little respect to begin with. So I would recommend trying it out.
Yeah, you don't
It's
have
very
to worry
fun
about
if
me
that's your
losing
kind of
respect
thing.
for you now.
If this is your kind of thing,
Wow.
you're gonna love it. I'm just gonna breeze right past that. I'm not even gonna dignify it with a response. It's so trashy, but it's also so fun. If again, like the romantic comedy in a sense, if you go in with the right mindset, it's just silly and honestly like pretty well produced. So I don't know, give it a shot if it's your cup of tea. Those are my recommendations this week. That's what I've been up to. Besides, moving and all the stuff that comes with that. Nerdbomber, what do you have for us?
All right. So I have two things that I want to talk about, a movie and a TV show. So the TV show that I want to cover is The Chair. This is a 6-episode. Each episode is 30 minutes.
I just heard about this. Someone just told me to watch this.
Yeah, this was really good. It came out on Netflix very recently. All 6 episodes are out. Unclear if there's going to be another season, but the 6 episodes, that's the self-contained season. It stars Sandra Oh, who becomes the chair, the first woman chair of an English department at a Ivy League type school. And, there's a big cast here. Besides Sandra Oh, you have Holland Taylor, Jay Duplass, there's David Morse, just a really good cast here, a good ensemble show. And there's a lot of different things addressed in this very short show. And I was actually impressed how it was able to, win me over on all of these characters in such a short amount of time and made me care very deeply about what was going on in each of their lives. And the characters are very complex. They face a lot of different issues, especially at this university. One of the biggest things that this show tries to tackle is how the academic field is kind of burdened by the issues of just institutionalism, not growing and advancing fields into the future because, you're kind of caught up in the past, but also things like, sexism, what it's like to be a person of color and marginalized, basically focusing on a lot of marginalized persons' issues on a college campus. And, this show, it's considered a drama, but I would say it's more of a dramedy. The cast is able to carry very heartfelt but also comedic moments very well. I think the role I believe it was actually written with Sandra Oh in mind, and you can tell, Sandra Oh kills it. I mean, I think she's a stunning talent as an actor, and she manages to have these really kind of deep emotional moments, but also deliver one-liners at the drop of a hat that just make you chuckle, especially if you've gone through the academic life like we have.
Right.
In the show, we've all at least tried to get into the academic research field and how difficult and kind of dodgy
it's not for the faint of heart.
Right.
Put it that way.
And there's a lot of red tape everywhere, a lot of politics in academia, and somehow in a very short amount of time, just 3 hours of time, this show manages to kind of capture a lot of that. So I was very impressed with the show.
6 half-hour episodes?
Yep, that's all it is.
Wow, it's low commitment.
Yeah, it's super low commitment. I definitely recommend it. Like I said, I was very sad that it was only 6 episodes. That's the only negative thing I really have to say about it. So
I'm a big fan of David Morse, by the way. Hearing you mention him, that dude, everyone's sleeping on David Morse. Underrated.
I mean, the entire
Underrated
cast
actor.
Here, you got to watch it. I 100% recommend it. I feel like you, especially Illeagle, you will love it. And I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this when you do get around to it.
This is going to be a recommendation of yours that I actually follow through on. I have a feeling.
I'm so excited for this.
Yeah,
maybe I'll get
hyped.
one.
Right. We'll see.
And then the movie that we watched was a movie called Tumbledown. This is an older movie. It's on Hulu. And the reason we picked it is because Jason Sudeikis is in it. And, coming off the heels of watching Ted Lasso, we were like, let's watch more. And
Ted Lasso.
This is kind of a I hesitate to call it a rom-dramedy, I think. And essentially, so the movie's premise is that a widow of a famous musician, he was up and coming, he has a hiking incident and passes. And the widow, for 2 years has kind of holed herself away. And Jason Sudeikis is a professor at a college, very academic things that we've been watching lately. But he wants to write a book about her husband and, you know, his music and his life. And so he comes to find her and kind of harasses her a little bit until she agrees to co-write a book with him. And just, you know, how they're able to connect with each other over, you know, the little things that they enjoy together, but also like her husband's memories and legacy. And so I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to spoil it. But it wasn't super feel good, but it also wasn't feel bad. It was just kind of like a slice
Just
of
feel.
life dramedy. Yeah, it was just like a feel, you know. It was very kind of wholesome in a way that Jason Sudeikis delivers very well. So if you're into a movie that, you know, you don't necessarily feel good about it, but you don't feel bad, and it's very slightly kind of uplifting, maybe, I would definitely maybe try to give it a shot if you're in the right headspace.
Definitely maybe give it a shot, y'all. You heard it here first.
But really just stick to Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it does not deliver Ted Lasso feels, unfortunately. Ted Lasso is
Few
a
shows
league of its
could.
own. Yeah.
Yeah. Techtic, what do you have?
So Nerdbomber graciously left out a movie we watched, and because it's probably the thing that I'm most excited for this past weekend. So we've had some unseasonably warm nights, and so we decided to have ourselves a projector movie night. Over the years, we have been slowly gathering pieces and parts to have a pretty nice projector system. Our screen is made of a large white tarp that's hung on our shed. Our projector has an HDMI output that then adapts to the phone input, and then you mirror your screen, and then you just download a Hulu, whatever you want, movie, episode, whatever Hulu has available, and you're good to go. And so I'm very excited about our setup because, like I said, it's been this thing that we've been sort of tweaking and modifying as time progresses. And so with this setup, we watched Logan Lucky. It's been out
Logan Lucky is awesome.
quite
What
a few
great
years
movie.
now, and we just haven't watched it, and it was available on Hulu as one of the downloadable options. So we watched it, and if you haven't seen this movie, it's got Adam Driver,
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig, Channing Tatum, and it is about basically a bunch of hillbillies trying to rob a raceway, and
Redneck
it is
Ocean's
awesome.
11.
It's just a fantastic movie. It's a feel good because I don't want to spoil it, but it is.
Right.
And just
Also,
go
Roy
check
from
it
The
out.
Office is in it.
And Joey Potter from Dawson's Creek.
So this is by the same guy that directed and maybe wrote Ocean's 11. It's Redneck Ocean's 11. Like, if you've seen Ocean's 11 and you liked Ocean's 11, you're going to love this.
And it's funny.
I've watched this movie a few times. Yeah, this is, for a while, this was one of the first movies that my now fiance and I saw together. And after we watched it, for a little while, we would both go, because there's that one scene where they're at like the festival thing or whatever, and the one guy's like, I read about it on the Google. I know all the Twitters. You know, there's all these like great lines, like when their safe word is cauliflower. Remember when he throws the phone? Oh gosh, that movie's so good, guys. Everyone should go watch. That's the best recommendation out of all the recommendations. Go watch that movie. It's free on Hulu. It's so much fun. Daniel Craig is amazing.
And it's downloadable, so you can mirror it on your phone to your projector and put your
outside.
phone in
Yeah.
airplane mode so it doesn't get interrupted.
Oh, it's a brilliant idea. Go watch a movie outside and make that movie Logan Lucky. 100% endorse that. Well, great. A lot of movies, a lot of shows this week for us. We're all screen junkies, I guess. But now we can talk more about Spider-Man because that is the quiz topic for today. I have put together 5 questions and a tiebreaker on all things Spider-Man. And I've tried to kind of sweep over, you'll see, a wide variety of media because Spider-Man is pretty pervasive in all forms of media. So we'll dive right into it, starting with one of my favorite games ever, the 2018 PS4 game called Marvel Spider-Man. How many copies of this game have been sold? And we'll start with Nerdbomber. We'll give Techtic a sporting chance as always.
This was like a bestseller. Oh boy. I'm going to say 250 million copies. I feel like I've seen that number somewhere.
I feel like that was a really good guess, but it was ever so slightly a bust. So I'm going to say 20 copies.
Okay.
Ever so slightly, meaning quite a bit. 13.2 million. So Techtic takes the point here. Now, Nerdbomber, you were correct. This is the 6th best-selling PS4 game of all time. But there are 330 million people in America You're
but
saying that
I guess I thought around the
You're-
world,
you're saying that like 80% of people in America, around the world, sure, you could normalize it a little bit, but that's a lot.
And hey, people buy it twice sometimes. You buy
Yeah,
the
are
digital
your-
edition, you buy the physical
Are those
edition.
global sales or?
It's Wikipedia sales. That's what I can tell you. I believe it's global, but I'm not positive. Either way, Techtic takes the point, so he's on the board early. Let's talk about the comic book. That's, of course, where Spider-Man started. When did he first appear in comics? This was in Amazing Fantasy number 15, if that gives you any sort of help. I'm looking for a month and a year. Let's just do the year, and if we need to do months, we'll do months.
1976.
And Nerdbomber.
I feel like it's earlier than that, and I don't want to bust. I'm going to say 1920.
You get the point. August 1962 is what we were looking for. Technically closer, but he bustaroonied. So we are looking at a tie game here.
Later ones to against the Human Torch in them.
Tie game going into question 3. Of course, my well-known love on the podcast, Tobey Maguire.
It's Tobey time.
The next 2 questions are about Tobey Maguire. I'm not sorry at all. Of course, Tobey Maguire came out, starred in really the first commercially successful Spider-Man movie. When did that come out? Again, looking for a year, although you can also give an exact date if you like. And now we're back to Nerdbomber going first here.
I think this was 2001. I'm trying to date it back because I remember the Nickelback song came out. There's a hero to save us. Or whatever.
I think that might have been the second movie, but that was an absolutely
it?
bone-chilling rendition you just gave. I don't remember. It could be the first one. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that you
I
sang it. And you
hate
can't take
that
that back.
guess because that was such a good guess. And this isn't even the +1 because I wanted to guess 2002 because I distinctly remember leaving the theater with my father, watching the spider CGI effects all over the credits, and I was just like, man. So I'm gonna go with 2002.
May 3rd, 2002.
Damn it.
Techtic is on fire right now. And by that, I mean he has 2 questions correct out of 3. So doing great so far. Techtic is ahead. Next question, also about my guy, Tobey Maguire. How old was Tobey Maguire when this movie was released? And so you know what year it was released. If you know when Tobey Maguire was born or how old he is, you can back this out.
I thought he was 26.
I think that's right on the nose. Oh, I'm so mad. I'm going to say 19 just to give myself some buffer, but I think he really got this right because I was going to say 26.
He was 26, guys. That's amazing. How did you know that?
There's collusion here. There's got to be collusion. He got 2 answers exactly right.
2 exactly correct answers. I mean, he's supposed to be a high schooler in this movie, and he's clearly not. That's the biggest hint. It's like, oh, wow, he's really...
I know that because I've researched what would it take for me to be in the MCU. And I'm not ashamed about this knowledge.
Well, I mean,
look,
technically, Robert Downey Jr. was older when he made his debut.
Right, but
But Techtic wants to be Spider-Man or be nothing.
there's a lot more opportunity for younger heroes entering than
Bankable
it is,
stars.
older ones.
Yeah, at this point, the Avengers aren't going to pass the torch to someone equally as geriatric.
Right.
Thanks for that.
Well, look, I had 5 questions here, so Techtic takes it home. We'll finish out here because I want to do the last question because it's really interesting to me. I mentioned we're gonna do a couple of different forms of media. Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark is a Broadway production. You may remember this was I think back in 2013, 2014. Most expensive Broadway project in history, still to this day. What was the budget?
I'm going to give it a $10 million budget.
No, that's way expensive for Broadway. I'm gonna call it 100,000 because I know that she busted.
100,000 is what they spent on catering. 75 million.
What?
Dollars.
Broadway ain't cheap.
What did you guess?
Broadway's
10
not
million.
cheap. Yeah. 10 million.
Think
was very
about all
low,
of
in fact.
the props and special effects that they can't do with CGI. You have to do that on stage, and
Well, and
all
also,
the lighting and paying the people.
I didn't know this, but Bono and Edge wrote the music. They probably got
Seriously?
paid a lot. Yeah, I didn't know that until I was Googling around to make this quiz, which is I was like, what the heck? It's crazy.
And then did they Spidey sense it onto all of our iPhones?
If only. I would
That
love
was
to
a
listen to
joke
this.
because the U2 album that literally could not be deleted.
Age of Innocence, I think, is what it was called. Yeah, I don't know. I might actually look up this musical and listen to the soundtrack because I'll know what's going on when I'm listening to it. Unlike other musicals where if I haven't seen the show and I listen to it, it's I don't know what's happening here. but it's probably pretty easy to track with something like Spider-Man. So Techtic takes it home. My tiebreaker question was going to be about Miles Morales when he first appeared, which was in August 2011 in Ultimate Fallout number 4. But the real story here is that Techtic is now at 7-9, and Nerdbomber is at 9-7. So
I don't like this.
Things
I only
are tightening
have
up here.
a few months to hold him off.
I'm at 13-2. Yeah, I'm still pretty well ahead. But there's the year is still kind of young. I mean, it's not young, but it's in its adolescence. So there's still time, Techtic, and there's still time, Nerdbomber. One of you is going to have to separate immediately, or not immediately, eventually. So something for the listeners to look forward to, I suppose, among many other things. We want to thank you all so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed listening to us chat about Gamescom and about Spider-Man and about various things and sundry that we've been watching. Hopefully you will leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, tell us how good or how bad we are. Hit us up on Twitter at the handles already mentioned, and get out there and find a construction worker. They're everywhere these days. It's summertime. There's road work being done in every corner of America. Go find one of the guys holding the sign telling you whether to stop or go, and just shout out the window to him. Online Warriors Podcast. Don't even give any other context. Just say that, and it'll all be okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.